Hi, and welcome to Screens and Focus podcast, where we share and connect as we spotlight our favorite shows and movies. I'm Diana. Today we're going to be talking about Cobra Kai Season 4. I have not only one, but two guest co-hosts today that I'm so excited to have. They are good friends. They are husband and wife. Please join me in welcoming Cindy and Devin. How are you guys?
Hi, Diana. Great to be here.
Glad to be here, Diana.
I am so excited that you guys are here to talk about, one of my favorite shows.
Yes, we really enjoyed it. It was so much fun. Can't wait to talk about it.
Yeah, so, I always start off with a question of the day. And so I was thinking about it, and of course, I love The Walking Dead. It's my favorite show, and I love Cobra Kai. So I thought, what if they merged, right? And so I actually put out a poll question, and the question was, who in Cobra Kai would survive a zombie apocalypse? So before I give you the poll results, I want to know from each of you, who do you think that would be?
Okay, I'll go first. I think I would pick Johnny, and I'll tell you why. Because in watching The Walking Dead, especially early on, it was Rick, and who was the other dude that died? His friend?
Shane. Yeah.
And Shane and him were clashing because Rick just wasn't aggressive enough, and Shane was. I mean, he's like, hey, this is another world. We're going to shoot people. It's going to happen. And I think that that was a mistake when he killed them off, because I think Rick got them in so many other troubles trying to be a nice guy, that I would take Johnny all day.
What about you, Cindy? Who do you think?
So that's a fun question. I think I would have to say Tori. I just think she's so ruthless. She doesn't care what people think. She knows what she needs to do to survive. And, we can see all through the previous seasons that, she's pretty much on her own already. And she doesn't really depend on anyone. She likes people around her, but she doesn't depend on them to help her get through life. So I think she would probably be, wouldn't be afraid of anything in the zombie apocalypse. And she'd use all of her internal resources to get through.
I agree. And, it's funny, but both of you picked someone who was on the poll, because I only could put out 4 people on the poll. Well, I could have maybe picked more, but I limited it to 4. The person that came in 4th was Dimitri, which I thought it was kind of cool to put him in there, right? Because he's a smart guy, right? And so I thought, well, maybe he could be the Eugene, the way Eugene is in The Walking Dead, kind of that person in here, right? So, but he came in 4th. He actually didn't get any votes in this. But what's interesting, we're talking about a zombie apocalypse and just 4 people here. So, and the 2 people that tied happened to be each of your picks. So Johnny Lawrence and Tori each got 27% of the vote.
Okay. So
they were tied. And the person that received 47% was Mr. Miyagi, who is probably, I think I'd pick Mr. Miyagi, but then I also think that Tori is very ruthless. Yeah. So if you've got to be ruthless to survive an apocalypse, then it might be her. Yeah. So I don't know. So very interesting. I love your choices, and friends out there, we want to know what you think. You can leave us a comment on Twitter at @in_screens. You can follow us on Instagram and subscribe to our website. The links are in our show notes. Okay, you guys, I have been a Cobra Kai fan since it premiered. I just love the show. It gives me everything I want from a television show. It's fun. It's exciting. It's hilarious. I love the characters and how we get to see them grow and evolve. And I think one of the reasons it really resonates with me is because I love the original Karate Kid films, and I really enjoy the flashbacks and also the reintroduction of the characters in current time. So it feels like we're a part of this universe because we kind of grew up with, Johnny and Daniel and some of the other characters that come back to visit. So, that's what speaks to me. And I also love all the references, all the Easter eggs that they put into the show from the movies. And I like that the story is really taken care of and is so well done. I know the creators, Josh Heel, John Hurwitz, and Hayden Schlossberg, are super big Karate Kid movie fans. They just love that. And so they wanted to put this out there. They had originally wanted to make a movie, and Johnny was going to be the center of that movie because they wanted to see how a bully grew up and what his life was like. But then the movie idea, I guess, kind of fizzled, and then they went with the show. And of course, now here we are, Cobra Kai, right? So I'm so happy that they did that. But it just goes to, we can see the love that they have of the show because they really think of everything. And I think that's what I pick up on. So I wanted to check in with you guys before we dig into season 4 about what draws you to Cobra Kai.
Well, that's funny because I also feel like it's the nostalgia of the 80s. And I loved growing up in the 80s. And I love the music, and I love anything that I can reminisce about the 80s and remember how I felt back then when I'm watching something. It's like I instantly am brought back to that time. And so I know just right from the beginning, Cobra Kai, knowing when it was coming out, it's like, oh my gosh, I remember how much I loved Karate Kid. And, so it's a lot of the nostalgia for me that really drew me to the show.
Yeah, I think I thought about this for a little bit. There was a fan-made video of a guy that he made it, and what it was is he edited the first movie with his narration and used all the clips to show that it was actually Daniel who was the bully, and it was Johnny who was being picked on. And it was done so well where he says, yeah, he never threw the first punch. And then he'd show it. And sure enough, he didn't. Daniel did start the fight. And so it went through this whole thing. And of course, it was done in fun. And this was before Cobra Kai had even been thought about. And I thought to myself, I wonder what Johnny...
Oh, wow. This was before Cobra Kai?
Oh, yeah. This, matter of fact, one of the producers you mentioned saw the movie, saw the fan clip. And they loved it. And so, and I was going to look that up for you, Diana, and I didn't, but I can find it somewhere. But it's funny as hell. It's very very intelligently done. So when they announced Cobra Kai, I thought, oh my gosh, that video that I saw, they're finally going to get into the stuff, like with his crane kick. That was an illegal kick. No one said anything, but he won it on that kick. And so you're not allowed to do that kick. So, that's what Johnny was saying. And so I just went, the first time we see Johnny when he's loaded, laying on his carpet in his apartment, I thought that's exactly where I expected him to be. So anyways, that's it. That's what I got.
I love it. That's so cool. All right. Let's dig into season 4 then. And there are spoilers ahead. So we're just going to break it all down. We're going to do 2 episodes at a time. And so in season 3, the finale left us contemplating so many different things. We wondered how Johnny and Daniel would work together. What was Robby going to do? Was Kreese going to get his hooks into Robby? And how was Terry Silver going to play in all this? And who was going to win the All Valley tournament? And now that we've seen season 4, we get the answers to those questions, but now I've got about 1 million more, right? Which I love. That's what I love, right? It just sucks you in and you just want more. And so, okay, so let's break down the first 2 episodes. Episode 1, Let's Begin, and episode 2, First Learn Stand. We see Miyagi-Do and Eagle Fang attempt to team up in preparation for the All Valley tournament. Kreese does everything he can to get Terry Silver, the villain from Karate Kid 3, to team up with him. Side note, I just recently watched Karate Kid 3. I've watched 1 and 2 repeatedly over and over again, and I know them really well. But number 3, I was like, I need to watch this because I know it's really important. So I watched it right around when Cobra Kai season 4 came out. I'm so glad I did because it really did fill in a lot of information. And then we meet Kenny, who is bullied by a group of kids, which includes Anthony LaRusso. And then Daniel and Johnny go to a hockey game where lessons are displayed. So, oh my gosh, you guys, this show makes me laugh out loud. Johnny's personality is hysterical, and the way he and Daniel clash over ideologies, it's like comic genius to me. And they reminded me of The Odd Couple, exact opposites in how their music and how they eat and everything. But they both love karate and teaching kids and seeing them succeed. So although they have these major differences, they have that in common, which is the underlying thread. And I think that is what bonds them together because they really do both care about the kids that they mentor. And, you know, I really like the introduction of Kenny. He's just like this ordinary kid. We see him getting ready for the day, and I'm thinking, who is this kid, and why, what's happening? But I really liked it because he drew me in as this actor, all on his own. And then we see him go to the bus stop, and he's dancing, and I thought, this kid is really cool. I really like him. And then, of course, the bus comes, and then he gets bullied. And when he's getting off the bus and someone says LaRusso, I started looking around because I thought, Sam's not on the bus. Yeah. Daniel's not on the bus. Yeah. Who are they talking about? And I didn't even realize it was Anthony LaRusso. I had no idea. He's grown up. And so I was surprised, and I thought, it threw me for a good loop, because I thought, this is a great thing to do. And I thought that for the writers, it was great to flesh out this Anthony LaRusso character. And then, of course, I love seeing the training between Daniel and Johnny. And then, of course, anytime they mention Mr. Miyagi, it totally warms my heart. There's that moment when Johnny's holding a beer, and Daniel, I don't know if he kicks it or if he does it with his hand. I think he does it with his hand. Yeah. And the whole top of the bottle goes off. And Johnny's so impressed by that. And he says, Miyagi-Do saved your life a couple of times, and tells him no one was as badass as Mr. Miyagi. Yeah. And it was cool because they showed a flashback of Mr. Miyagi, which I always love those. Those are always my favorite moments. But one of the main lessons in this episode, or these 2 episodes, was no be there. So I thought that was cool. What did you guys think of these episodes, and did anything stand out?
So I don't know, Diana, if you've heard the term shipping or not.
Yeah.
Okay. Sam and Diane was shipping. I think.
Yes.
Right. Jennifer Aniston was shipping with Ross. And what they do is they create all of this, tension between the 2 characters week after week. And you keep hoping they get together and say, okay, we've had enough. Now we want you to get together. Well, I think Daniel and, it's coming right now. I think Daniel and Johnny are shipping, or going to ship. Every time they get close to actually understanding each other, something is said that they take offense to, and it'll never work, and they both walk away. And it's happened a few times.
Right.
And so I guess I'm not trying to be negative, but I think I get frustrated because they're going to eventually have to have them together and then find another antagonist because, after a while, people start jumping off the boat. So saying that, I love their moments together, especially that one time in the bar. That was great when Johnny didn't know what Facebook was, and that was really cute. So I agree with you. I love them together, and it gives Johnny a chance to really come up with some good one-liners because Daniel's so straight ace. Yeah.
Yeah, he's a master at that. It's so good.
Yeah. So that's it.
Yeah, and for me, I think it's fun to watch Johnny and Daniel and how different they are, but I agree it is also frustrating. And I think in watching the first 2 episodes, I really thought they'd get their act together sooner as a team. It felt like we went into the episodes thinking, okay, this is going to happen. And almost immediately, it just was broken again. And I think one of the things that I was really looking for through this season was this breakthrough from those two, where I just keep feeling like there's somewhere in them that they have the potential to be best friends and to really have each other's backs in not just the karate world, but in life. Yeah. It feels like they're always in this parallel. And yet so much of what's happening in their own lives, if they shared it with each other instead of walking as a parallel, it would feel like a bigger dynamic. Just things with their own families and, with Johnny and his relationship. And I did notice, and not to jump ahead, but I did notice that he never pinpointed his relationship with Miguel's mom to Daniel. And how that dynamic, it wasn't just that he was the sensei, but now dating the mom, where does that leave him with Daniel, or I'm sorry, with Miguel? And I felt like that could have been articulated. It kind of got left as a parallel through the story without anybody saying, hey, wait a minute, I didn't realize you were dating Miguel's mom. Like, she goes over for dinner, so I thought they knew, but it's not ever really pinpointed as to one of the reasons that there were hurt feelings and other things that, obviously come up later. But, it kind of all starts in this first 2 episodes where you're like, okay, we're ready to go. And then here we go again.
Yeah, absolutely. Hopefully, again, we're jumping ahead, but I think they eventually get there. I think finally this season, I feel like they finally make headway. I know what I was thinking too, was that after watching Karate Kid 3, I realized how hard-headed Daniel LaRusso is. Or hot-headed. Not hard-headed, hot-headed. Let me say that first. He is hard-headed too, but hot-headed. Because in Karate Kid 3, he kept getting like mad and angry. And I was like, I mean, not horribly, but just he was very triggered. And I thought, oh, that's how you are in Cobra Kai. That you're bringing it through that personality trait. And it's funny because in season 3, when Allie comes back, she kind of brings that up, how he misinterpreted or I guess kind of blamed her for their breakup. And we just take it as he says, right? As he says, as he had told Mr. Miyagi, we take that as fact. But here she is in Cobra Kai 30 odd something years later saying, no, it was like this. He just thought I was dating this guy. He just thought I was doing this. So, right? So his pride or his hard-headedness is getting in the way. And that's what a lot of this is too. The only reason I give him a break on all this is because most of it has to do with Mr. Miyagi's teachings. And like I said, I have a soft spot for Mr. Miyagi. So anytime that is brought up or trying to be passed along, I'm like all for it. I'm like, yes, you've got to listen. It's from Mr. Miyagi. But, he's the messenger. And so the messenger is the one that has to get, do a little work on themselves to figure out the right way to pass that along. What did you guys think of the hockey game?
Well, I thought it was fun. I thought it was when they were watching the lessons and then, the surprise from the players afterward, the repercussions were, I liked watching them fight those guys. And I thought, see, they can do this. They really are a team and they have each other's back. So that's where I thought we were going to get this glimmer of hope.
Johnny actually took off and let Daniel do it. But he wanted Daniel to shine in what he had taught Daniel, the lessons that he had taught him. He's like, okay, here, go do Eagle Fang to get out of this mess with these hockey players. And then I love Johnny's, when Johnny came back and he's all, where were you? And he's all, no, be there. It's like, oh yeah,
right,
I
he'll
learned from
be
you
there.
too.
That's right.
Right? So they learned from each other. So I just thought that was really cool.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Okay, so episode 3, They Learn Fall, and episode 4, Bicephaly. Daniel and Johnny switch training groups, and Terry Silver visits Kreese and ultimately joins him. And then Kenny joins Cobra Kai after a couple of tries and tells them about Hawk and the others that are harassing him. And then we see Johnny as he grows envious of Daniel and Miguel's relationship. So much happens in these episodes that I really appreciate. We really see that no one is perfect and that everyone has flaws and insecurities, and the adults don't know everything. And both the kids and adults learn from each other. And sometimes there is more than one right answer. So like at the dinner that they had, what was it? Miguel wanted to go to Stanford, and his mom was kind of steering him to staying there where they're at and going to community college. And then Sam wanted to go far away, I think it was. And her parents were all like, oh, let's just stay here. Like they were really trying to steer their children to what they thought was best. And it was funny, Cindy, because it reminds me of our conversations in parenting sometimes.
Right.
So, we always try to steer our kids, but then sometimes, they want to do what they want to do and be who they want to be, and they have to figure out their own ways. And us as parents, we do the best we can, but we don't always have the right answers. And sometimes we have to stand back and listen to what they have to say. And so I just thought that all of that was very interesting. And I really noticed the dynamics of being a parent and a child in these episodes. We also see it with Robby mentoring Kenny. So here we go with another sort of, it's not a generation, but in a way it is, because here Robby is mentoring Kenny. Yeah. And then he advises him to use his speed, which he ends up using, able to outrun his bullies. And then I thought, oh my gosh, in this episode, I was really kind of surprised at Sam and Johnny's exchange, because I thought she had really harsh words to say to him. Because they didn't want to jump the building, but I appreciated his comeback. I thought he had the perfect comeback. With everything that she was throwing at him, he was saying it back. And then I found it interesting because she gets a text from her father, Daniel, saying, don't do anything that I wouldn't do. And here it is. You're telling your kid something and they're like, oh, my dad's telling me not to do it. I'm going to do it. Yeah. And so what does she do? She does what Johnny wanted her to do, and she jumps that building. She makes it. They're all ecstatic. So, so I just thought that was a pretty cool thing. What did you guys think?
Yeah, I think my favorite part of that is, the first thing is I noticed that, you mentioned Robby and Kenny and how Robby kind of takes them under his wing. And it's a mini arc. Oh, and it's great how they do it, but it's like a 4 or 5 episode arc of him teaching Kenny, and Kenny's getting angrier and angrier. And then at the end, not to jump ahead, but it's important to that, what I'm talking about is Robby goes to his father and says, I have failed this other human being. I couldn't train him. I tried to train him. And Johnny knows all about that and just was there for his father, let the kid cry, hugged him. Maybe he was even crying. And so that Kenny arc, to me, while it's fun to watch and I like Kenny, was really about Robby and his dad. So that's kind of what I liked about all that.
Yeah, that gives me chills. I love that stuff. I love that stuff.
Yeah, I really thought Kenny was such an interesting character right from the beginning. He's so likable. And there's just something about him, he has a tender soul that you feel like you see this innocence in this child that, he wants friends. He He likes the girl. He's new. He is lonely, clearly. And I just couldn't help but root for him. And so I found it very interesting, once you understand the dynamic of how, because it's like you said earlier, how is he going to play into this? And when you connect the dots to his brother knew Robby in jail, it's like, go find Robby. And I thought, my first thought when he entered Cobra Kai was, I said, I'm so glad he's having this horrible experience here, and these people are so not like him. He's really going to find his way to Miyagi-Do or Eagle Fang or however that whole side of the story was going to play out. I really thought he was going to end up there because he just did not remind me at all of what you see in the Cobra Kai people and what they're about. And, I feel like the Cobra Kai methodology is be a bully instead of being bullied. Like their way of dealing with that is, hey, you need to be the bully first. So strike first. And it all kind of plays together. And I just didn't see that bullying in Kenny. He would shy away. He would flinch. Right. And even with the kids who were teasing him when he showed up at the schoolyard or whatever in the costume, he ran. He didn't fight them. In gym class, he was super talented in basketball. But then, when they took offense to him and he tried to be friendly, he didn't have it in him to then be even more on the offense. So I just really, it's interesting to watch the show progress and him to progress, because that was at that point in time, if I just thinking about this part of the season, I honestly said, okay, I'm ready for him to move on from Cobra Kai. And how long is it going to take for him to open his eyes to this? So kind of fun. I liked him right from the start, though.
Right.
I found myself always rooting for him.
Yeah. Okay, so in episode 5, Match Point, and episode 6, Kicks Get Chicks, Daniel and Johnny continue to be at odds, which results in a well-choreographed and impressive yet hysterical match. All Valley Tournament makes changes, prompting the dojos to scramble, and Sam visits an old friend, Aisha, and may have misinterpreted her message. Oh boy. So I want to say that Match Point is one of my favorite episodes of the season. It was, besides the end, I'm not talking about the All Valley Tournament, but out of all the episodes, it just, I think I was so amused and laughed so much and loved so many things about it. One, of course, was the Daniel and Johnny match. I just thought their choreography was amazing. And I love that they set this all up, and that here we see Sam and Miguel calling the points, and we see the other students being the announcer and being the cameraman. And it was just so much fun. And I wondered what was going to happen. Who's going to win? What is this going to mean? Because I thought if one of them wins, they're going to hang it over the other one's head. What's going to happen? And then it was a perfect match with them knocking each other out at the same time. I had to rewind it and watch it 3 times because I saw what Daniel did, but I couldn't see what Johnny, how he knocked Daniel out. But all I know is they both went, like straight as a board, fell over, and it was just so funny. I was cracking up. And then we also see Confrontation with Cobra Kai. Oh my gosh. I don't know what you guys have to say about that in a minute, but oh my gosh, that hurt.
Mean.
That hurt.
Yeah.
That was really hurt. No one did it to me, but one time when I was really young, I went and got my hair. I mean, I was really young. I might have still been in high school, but I went to get my hair cut, and they cut one side of my hair off, and then the other side was long.
Oh, jeez.
And I came home, and I threw myself on the bed, and I bawled my eyeballs out. I felt like my whole identity went out the window. And that was my doing, right? I mean, they said basically what they were going to do, but I thought, okay, well, maybe they know better than me. I mean, I was young. I was like, okay, let's get it done. Oh my gosh. I wore a beret on my head, and my father used to call me Frenchie for a while because I was trying to hide the shaved side of my head, or the short part of my head. It took me a long time to grow them even. But the whole point is, your hair, and here, his hair is so iconic to who he is. So I thought they were going to hurt him, they did hurt him, but I meant when you see that razor come out, I thought, oh my God, they're going to cut him. They're going to do something to they're going to give him another tattoo. That's what I thought. And I thought the new tattoo was going to be something bad. Yes. And so, yes. So I guess in all of that, the hair at least will grow back, but but still I could see how it really hurt him emotionally. And then I think the thing that I laughed the hardest and stayed with me was Johnny's drunken Twitter rant. It had me on the floor, and I'm not kidding. I never laughed so hard. I had to stop it again, and I laughed and I laughed and I laughed, and then I had to go back and one of my sons walked by. He's all, "Oh, are you watching the Twitter rant part?" And I said, "Yeah." And he's all, "We paused it and read it." So that's what I did, because I'm like, wait. And I saw it all on Twitter, but I wanted to read it. And basically it says, how does this thing work? Tomorrow night, Eagles reign supreme. It's time for the Valley to see what karate is all about. And it's on Lawrence LaRusso rematch, Hash Brown. Dead meat. Oh my gosh. I love Hash Brown. It just is my favorite that comes out of his mouth. And then when the kids are talking about it, they say, and this is what made me laugh over and over again, Dimitri says, "Who does he think's reading this? He only has one follower." And he's, it's like, oh my God. Yeah. Oh my God. I was dying. Perfect writing and all of it to put that out there. I just thought it was so brilliant. Ooh. And then we see Eli rejoin Miyagi-Do. And I thought, thank God, because Miyagi-Do doesn't have a chance on the guy portion of this. Yes, Dimitri has risen up some, and actually he pretty much impressed me at the All Valley because he hadn't been that good. But I thought, they're never going to get anywhere. Only Sam knows how to fight. And what are we going to do? So I was really happy to see that Eli went back. But I will say the whole Sam Tori thing, that had me conflicted. I wasn't happy with how Sam was reacting and being. Yeah. What'd you guys think?
Well, specific to Sam and Tori, I think that's such an interesting storyline. And that's another one that kind of dances around and feels like it could have potential for two people to really break down a wall. And, I think so much of my expectation is that Tori's always going to be the bully. And I think there's a part of Sam that we see come out that is not the Miyagi-Do defense. It's more the Eagle Fang offense. And, it feels like this whole season, that's sort of the representation is what part is defense, what part is offense. And so I feel like that whole Sam storyline it's very interesting to watch them kind of grow in themselves and then also try to figure out how to navigate these things. And I think, I just want to mention about Hawk that it is so interesting to see how someone's persona is tied to something like a mohawk or a tattoo. And I feel like you could see this sadness and this just overwhelming defeat in his eyes. And the fact that even the dojo was saying, hey, we're not going to retaliate on this. That's a hard thing, especially if you think about being a high schooler. I mean, that's the first thing you're going to do is fight back. And he certainly had the defeat, and obviously that was probably one of the reasons he didn't really retaliate. But I felt like, again, where there's a difference in training styles, that understanding of, being on the defense and not just going back after these people, I think really it had a part to play in that. And it's just so interesting. And when you mentioned the hair, and I can so identify with those things and how something can make you feel so defeated. That's just really nothing for your functionality, has nothing to do with that. But if you feel like you have this thing that makes you superior, it's very hard to break that down and then feel like you are still able to be superior. So I just thought that was interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I want to piggyback on what Cindy said a little bit about Eli. Is that his name? The hawk?
Yeah.
By the
Eli,
way,
yeah.
Have you ever noticed that when they say hawk or he shows up, there's a hawk noise that plays in the background?
I don't hear it every time, but yes, I have heard that. Yes.
I love it. I love it. But I remember where he came from, which is he had the hair lip or whatever it's called.
Yeah.
And he was bullied. And then he went into the Cobra Kai when Johnny had just started it. And Johnny kept calling him ugly lip and lips McGrew and all, just made fun of him all the time. And then he took him aside and said, hey, if you don't want people to make fun of you about that, then why don't you get another name, another nickname, and get known for something else? And he went and got his mohawk. And coinciding with that, he started learning karate, and he started becoming badass. So there was a lot of symbolism in that mohawk. When it was cut off, he's back to square one as a nerd, and but he's not. And by the way, I was excited when he rejoined because I knew he was like the only guy that could kick butt. So
I know, right?
Yeah, and there's another thing I want to bring up about actually the fight between LaRussa and Johnny. Is I don't know if you've noticed this, but there's a lot of Rocky overtones in this.
I did.
Have you? Okay.
Yes, totally. I'm so glad that you are saying that. Yes.
Yeah. One example is, when they both knock each other out. That was Rocky 2. That's how it ended. They both, no one won. But just there's a lot of other stuff in there as far as Johnny doesn't have the money, so they show his kids training with water bottles and sticks from outside. Then they pan to, the expensive dojos, and they've got the top of the line equipment and all that stuff. So Johnny is truly the underdog, just like Rocky was.
Yes.
Having to train with what he had around him. So anyways, I thought that was what's wrong?
Chills. Chills again.
God. I should have worn some boxing gloves.
I love it. I just love hearing.
Yeah,
What's
I mean, that whole Rocky thing, and Devin pointed that out to me when we were watching the show. And I started finding things myself that were such a correlation to Rocky. Like they did have the Survivor song.
Yes.
Survivor was in there.
But
yes.
there was also a song they started playing, and it was not a song I knew, but it started out with the same intro beat as the Rocky theme, and then it goes into something else. But I felt like that was very planned. And
I'm sure it was.
So many things. Yeah. It really, it did. It felt a lot like they were pulling from that in these key parts. So that was super fun because I love Rocky too. So
yeah. Well, like when he's running on the beach.
Yes.
And all of that, they are playing a Survivor song during that. So that is from Rocky. And then even when he was training Daniel, the way he was training him, like you said, it reminded me of Rocky when he was training out in the snow and he was doing everything manually. And the other guys were using all those machines. And see, I loved that, like showing like when you really do the real work, that's what's really going to make you win or have that edge. And I'm just bringing this up because it just popped into my head that I wanted to bring up. I felt that way with Miyagi-Do when Robby showed everybody Miyagi-Do ways. I thought, yeah, but he's showing them in moves. He's not everyone else that really learns it through the painting, the waxing, the being out on a canoe or being on the water. So I kept thinking that they were going to showcase how even though they used Miyagi-Do, it didn't work for them, but they didn't even bring that up. But that's what I was feeling because I thought, no, you don't really know Miyagi-Do. You just know the moves, but they're not going to work for you because you didn't learn them the way you should have learned them. So
and the concepts. And why when you learn wax on, wax off, and then when they put it in motion and it naturally, your body memory, muscle memory understands it, but yet these kids didn't know any of that part of it. And they don't understand the methodology behind what Miyagi-Do stands for. And
exactly.
So I agree. I really felt like that was an opportunity for them to really showcase why that was special.
Yeah.
And they didn't. They more focused on just Robby stealing the moves, and therefore they could use them. And I know there were some other things that were on the flip side that they were able to do that I know we'll get into. But I did hope that they were going to explain that. And they really, I think they missed a good little spot to add something to it.
They did. Okay, so in episode 7, Minefields, and episode 8, Party Time, the tensions escalate between Kenny and Anthony. And then Anthony gets busted, and Cobra Kai teaches a lesson on weakness. And we see Johnny share his fears and hopes with Miguel. And then, oh my gosh, Stingray is back.
Yes.
And prom night is on. And people get beat up emotionally and physically in this episode. So, with Kenny and Anthony, we kind of already talked about how we feel about this, but, we keep seeing it progress. Mm-hmm. And I think you were saying early on, Cindy, I felt sorry for Kenny too. And I thought LaRusso was just being a punk kid. But I also saw that Anthony was having this inner struggle. Like, I think he was just trying to be accepted by these bullies. Because I don't really feel like he was initiating anything. I don't think he just wanted to be called out. So then he would act on being a bully. And so, because he always had this look like he didn't really want to do it, but he had to do it. And I didn't blame Kenny at first for fighting back. But then that moment when he turns to Anthony and says, "Gotcha." I was like, oh my God, I wanted to slap someone.
We have another monster.
I'm like, yes, exactly. I'm like, what happened? Oh my gosh. And that conversation between Johnny and Miguel, whoa, he was being pretty vulnerable there and talking about, the heartbreaks and fatherhood and, Johnny losing his dad at 5 and then Sid coming in and being not a good role model at all. And then Kreese being his role model. So he just thought that with all of that he wouldn't be a very good father. And so he wasn't a good father to Robby at all. And okay, I'm going to do a side note again. I wanted last season, and maybe even the season before, I kept wanting Johnny to step up as a dad to Robby because I felt like he was stepping up to be a dad for Miguel, which was the easier thing to do. But I kept thinking, but Robby's your son. Go fight for him. Figure out how to do it. And he it's not until we get to the end, but I kept saying, so that was frustrating for me to see Johnny really not step up as a father and everything that he was doing for Miguel, which I really like Miguel a lot. And I think Miguel needed it. But here he has 2 potential people that do care about him, being Daniel and Johnny, parenting him. But Robby needs somebody. Robby needs somebody. And they both, I mean, Daniel was doing it for a while, but I just felt sorry for Robby on that note. But I also wanted to say when Johnny goes and sees Kreese and Silver, and Silver beats the crap out of him. And again, another Walking Dead reference. This reminds me of Rick. Rick's always getting beat up by the enemy. And now Johnny keeps getting beat up by the enemy. And I'm like, you are the sensei of a dojo. And yes, I know he is too, but I didn't want him getting beat up like that. Not so bad,
on a side note to your side note about that.
Uh-huh. I like it.
I think that in that scene where Kreese pulls Silver off of Johnny.
Yeah.
Like, hey, I brought this for you. This is yours. That's the first moment that I've seen that I can remember of Kreese showing that he's a human being.
Yeah.
And it actually gets a step up later when you talk about it. But I noticed that. I was like, wow, okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. What else did you guys see in these episodes?
Yeah, I know we already touched really on the Kenny and Anthony conflict, but as I mentioned earlier, I knew later on we would see what kind of formulated, and obviously Kenny didn't leave Cobra Kai. And you do start to see Anthony really having a conscience. And you're starting to see the warning bells go off when Kenny is getting more vicious. And I think that's like, maybe he really is in the place that he's supposed to be, that he's shedded the innocent personality and he's ready to accept all that's going on the inside, where he's got so much anger that is just now starting to understand that he can unleash it. And so it's kind of a bummer in that respect, because I still had this hope that, it's like the boys on the schoolyard. You go out and you get a couple black eyes and you come home and you're best friends. And that's just how best friends for boys are always made. And this just didn't really turn out that way. And I thought it could. So I want to touch on what you mentioned about the conversation between Miguel and Johnny and talking about the parent issues. I feel like all the main characters in this show have the mommy and daddy issues. And so many of them have either single parents. I mean, think of Tori. She has a mom that's incapacitated and her dad is gone. You've got Johnny, who grew up in, he ends up with a stepdad, but we get this glimpse into his past when they show the flashback of he pulls all the items out from under the bed, and there's the crushed beer can in there. And, the mom thinks she's doing the right thing by finding this man who had money, but really what he needed was a role model. Miguel has no dad. Robby, his dad is, and his mom, both were not good parents. And then Kenny, his brother's in jail, his dad is gone. And even Daniel. And, Daniel grew up. And remember we were talking about, Daniel, but the difference was.
Yeah, he was the only one out of everybody that lucked into Mr. Miyagi. So he was raised, the right way. And he's benefited from that. We see he's got money and a nice family and a nice house. And then juxtaposition to that is Johnny, who found a father figure, but unfortunately the father figure was insane. And so he had nobody after that. And basically the only person that he really loved was telling him he was worthless and he sucked and, whatever else he said at the end of Karate Kid 1. But anyways, I think that's a very prevalent issue through the whole show.
Yeah. And I think it's interesting to me because I can't think of another show I've ever seen where so many of the characters have the same issue, because that's really the underlying issue. And they all seem to have it. And they address it, but they never really, you don't see them collaborate on it, right? It's very siloed, but every single one of them has the same problem, which is kind of odd, actually.
I think in the end, they're seeking balance. I mean, it's not about karate. It's not about getting picked on. It's not all of these things. It's seeking balance. And Daniel was able to seek balance and was shown the way how to do that. And I think even Johnny, and as crazy and as funny as he can be, he does love karate, and he certainly does love those kids.
Mm-hmm.
He does. And so he's going to show them his version of balance without even knowing it.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Absolutely. And it's true, us, recognizing that about parenting and fatherhood and everything else. And I just read today that was very intentional, because they said they wanted to draw back on the relationship that Daniel had with Mr. Miyagi and how important having a person in your life. And that is why they brought it to the forefront in Cobra Kai. So it was very important for them to bring that. They wanted karate to be in it. They wanted parenting, a mentor, fatherhood to be in there. And they also wanted to show bullying in it. Those were like three things that I think there might have been more or whatever, but I recall them saying at least those three things. And that's what we see all the time, right? So, yeah.
Yeah.
What else, Devin?
I just want to say Stingray. Yes. Stingray is my favorite character. Even though he's such a, he's a very small character in all of this. He does play an important part.
Who hangs out with a bunch of kids.
Even though at the time you don't realize it. What's that?
Who hangs out with a bunch of kids. Gives them alcohol.
I tell you what, if I were in high school, we all need a Stingray.
I know.
We all need Stingray.
We all would have been at his house partying for sure, with the pool and everything.
That's why when he kicked and punched his neighbor and knocked him out and put his arms up and everybody went crazy.
I know.
I fell in love. I did. So real quick, he, outside of him being a character, they use him in the story because he wants to be Cobra Kai so bad. I mean, he wants to be a badass. Mostly, he wants to be a part of. He wants to be on this team. And when Silver beats the living daylights out of him when he was drunk. And I think the last words we hear is Silver said, "I'll let you be Cobra Kai, but there's something you got to do for me." And I was wondering, what does he have to do for him? And then at the end, as we all know, he rats out Kreese, and Kreese is now gone. And now, amazingly enough, I don't know how they've done it, they've made Kreese a sympathetic character.
I know.
Isn't that amazing?
Well, okay. Think about The Walking Dead, right? Negan. Okay, sorry about that. I just had to pop that in there, right?
Exactly.
So, anyways, go ahead, Cindy. What were you going to say?
Just before we moved on, I just wanted to make one more point that Devin actually again pointed out to me, and the dancing at the prom.
Yeah.
Was such a nod to Grease. Yeah. I mean, didn't you feel that nostalgia?
Yeah.
Well, even the drive-in too, right? Them going to the drive-in.
And the drive-in.
That's right.
Yeah.
And, you just kind of had this, all the choreographed dancing and the kids there. It was...
And, as Diana has said, that's no accident. They're taking these themes from the 80s and lightly sprinkling them into the story where they're just enough there to be able to recognize it.
Yeah, and feel good.
Yeah.
And be like, oh, I know this makes me feel like this.
Almost like a Stranger Things vibe. That way Stranger Things don't
it's so funny that you say that, because I heard, that was the other thing I read, that they had seen Stranger Things and how well, that was bringing the 80s, to us. And so they thought, no, we got to do this. We got to do this. So I'm like, yes. I'm so glad you did. That's so cool.
Yeah.
I did want to bring up that, cousin Vanessa, the one that that gave
clinic?
Daniel and Amanda their spanking of parenting. Anyways, that is actually Julia Macchio. That is Ralph's real life daughter. So she played.
Daughter.
Yeah, it's his daughter. And so he said it was kind of meta having your daughter play a role and telling you weren't a very good parent. So I thought that was really cool.
Yeah.
So
that is good.
Yeah, she does it good. She does that whole, Marissa Tomei in My Cousin Vinny, she does that really good. So
yes, she does.
I thought that was pretty funny.
Nice.
All right, let's move along to the last two episodes. Episode 9, The Fall, and episode 10, The Rise. So the All Valley tournament begins. The moment of truth, quotation marks, for all the Cobra Kai, because Carrie Underwood sings this Karate Kid classic by Survivor.
Yeah.
I just love how they do this. And I don't know if you guys knew this, but Carrie Underwood was a surprise. Like, people didn't know it. They kept it under wraps. Like, not even like the people in the audience that were sitting there. Their surprise was real surprise when she came out and started singing.
Wow,
and so
I did not know that.
Yeah,
that's so cool.
Yeah, it was a big thing that they're like, oh, we're going to bring on Carrie Underwood. Nobody's going to know about it. We're going to keep it top secret. And they said it was easier to do because of COVID, because everything was so, not that many people around, not that many people knew about things. So it was easy for them to bring her in and have them not know about it. So I just thought that was a cool thing. So we see the skills and the individuals begin, and then we see the conclusion of the tournament and how that impacts everybody. And there's so much to break down here. So let's start with the tournament. I loved the beginning because I was so excited. I felt like I was there, and here we go. And the announcement of each dojo and the senseis was just so good, and the montage of everyone working, of everyone's work leading up to this, and then we see the pairings and how they do on the rankings. What did you guys think of this whole tournament?
Yeah, I loved the introductions. I actually, it was fun. I was so proud of Johnny, and it was really neat how they were showing all the other dojos and their beautiful facilities, and kind of like we talked about before. And Johnny's guys, they show them all working out, and they're all in their sweats, and none of them match. And, they're just kind of this ragtag group of kids in this warehouse. And I was like, in fact, Devin and I said, oh, Johnny's going to come out, and they're not going to even have uniforms to wear.
Yeah.
Because we've never seen them really in uniforms.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden they come out, and red is such a powerful color.
Yeah.
And they looked sharp, and it was just so fun. I was really excited because they looked so professional. It really made me smile. It was like Johnny had arrived, it was here, it was go time, and he rose to the occasion and got these guys ready, and they looked like something that they were proud of within themselves. And I just thought that was cool. So that was actually one of my favorite parts. And I thought it was very interesting that the tournament took place in episode 9.
Yeah.
I expected that to be the grand finale taking place in the last episode. And I was like, wait, is this the last episode? And then to find out that was the penultimate.
Yes, penultimate.
I thought that was interesting how they did it that way, because it was something you built up to all season, and yet they brought it to you in episode 9. So,
what do I think? Well, it was very exciting. when I saw that, I was thinking to myself, I wonder if I'm missing out this whole time, and there's these Olive Valley things happening all over the place, and I can go see them. But or maybe it's just made up. I'm not quite sure.
Probably.
But I would definitely go. Yes, I'm sure there's somewhere. But I kind of agree with it's. I think most people root for the underdog, and I root for Johnny to become a real person. And he's trying very hard. I mean, he's made dinner for his gal, which was disgusting. But when he came out with the outfits, I just thought it was so cool. I just really, really did. It got me jacked up, and it seemed like they were the smallest dojo. I didn't count everybody, but they were pretty small. So I just, I think I had a little bit of pride happening there. I got swept up into it.
Yeah. I loved all their gis also. And I loved all the colors because there was white, black, red. Of course, they only showed them. I don't even know who else was there. But they were beautiful. Yeah. But I kept thinking that Miyagi-Do's gi looked the most uncomfortable to do karate in because the sleeves were so long. And I thought that Cobra Kai had the best, competition gis because they were like short sleeve and you could see their arms and I feel like they were freer to move. But I liked each of their gis. I just thought they were really cool looking and such vibrant colors. And I liked the red, the black, the white. It was so cool. And of course, yes, it was so exciting and the music was going and I really noticed the music. And I'm not talking about just songs that we know. I'm talking about the music during the episode when people would make a punch or a kick and be all, ooh, so it was just so cool. Yeah. And then they would go in slow motion and it was really, I just feel they really took care in the production of all this. And it was just, it really paid off, I thought, for that. Yeah. And it was so, so well choreographed. And so when Daniel and Johnny and their interaction, here we go again, Mr. Miyagi gives that flashback when he's talking to him and he tells him he's sorry and that, that he had forgot a lesson that Mr. Miyagi had taught him. And what's interesting is the flashback is from Karate Kid 3. It's from Karate Kid 3 because
that's
in Karate
what I
Kid,
thought, I didn't recognize it.
Yeah, in Karate Kid 3, he goes to get, and that's probably why I didn't know about it either the first time that I watched it because then I watched Karate Kid 3 and went back. But in Karate Kid 3, he buys Mr. Miyagi a bonsai store, uses all his money instead of going to college. And
that was the reference. Yeah. He mentions it when he's talking to Miguel.
He does.
I was like, oh, he bought a bonsai store. I didn't know that.
Yes, but I love it. All these pieces, all these references. So yes, he buys a bonsai store, and they come and torch the bonsai store. So Daniel goes to look for a bonsai tree, and he sees it off the ocean. And I won't give away all of Karate Kid 3 if people haven't seen it. Go watch it. But basically, he goes to find a bonsai plant, and they take it, and I think they nurture it, and they go to bring it back. And so Mr. Miyagi is telling him in that flashback that we see that the roots are strong. Oh, you guys, it just kills me. The roots are strong. Yeah. So if you give your child, your mentee, whoever it is, good roots and let them find their way, the best lesson.
Yeah, so true.
And the fact that Daniel comes into this big realization and realizing his hard-headedness and telling Johnny that he understands that he has important lessons and values also, and that giving Sam the opportunity to figure out her own way. Oh my gosh, it was just It was perfect.
It was awesome.
Yes, it was awesome. It was exactly
Love that moment.
what what we needed and what we loved to see. And I really liked the fight. I loved all the fights, every single one of them, even Dimitri fighting. All of them were really well done. Even Devin Lee, the new girl, everybody was so good. I enjoyed every single one of them. But I thought Eli and Robby was really good. I thought the choreography was really good. I thought their athleticism was really good.
Yeah.
And then when, they go into overtime, you can see them struggling to get their breath. And I thought their acting was phenomenal because these guys are not professionals, right? They're just acting the part. And to get these close-ups of their face when they get a punch or throw one, I thought, or looking back or going back to talk to the senseis or whatever it might be, I just thought they were so good. They're such good actors too. And they're so good at what they've learned here. And, but they take off their shirts and then you see Hawk, like you said, the sound of a hawk in the background. He shows his back tattoo, rolls his shoulders. And, they, go at it again and then he ends up winning. And it's like, yes, Eli wins. And I read also that was already pre-planned like a while ago. They wanted Eli to win because they figured Miguel already had his time and that, Miguel's more focused on his father. So they really wanted Eli to have this moment. But then I was thinking, well, what about Robby? He's been in this twice and he's gone second place both times. But I think Rocky, listen to me, Robby was, I think he lost a point because he looked up at Kenny and saw what Kenny's reaction to him was. Yep. And so I think he thought, oh my gosh, what's happening? What am I doing? And so I think, that could have lost his focus. I don't know. I'm happy for Eli at this, at this point. And then, of course, we see Sam and Tori, which, oh my gosh, was so good because I appreciated seeing Tori because she wasn't that same person that she was. She wanted to fight fair. She didn't have that quivering lip like she normally has. Like she wanted to beat the crap out of you. I felt her shift, but Sam was I was really impressed with Sam this time. Yeah, I really was.
Let me jump in, Diana. I'm going to jump in real quick.
Yes.
When you're talking about Tori and how she wanted to do her own way, and we had Silver saying, no, you got to do it this way. She's injured. Then Kreese comes up and says she can do what she wants to do.
Yeah.
And that was, again, this weird moment of growth from Kreese because they did flash back to him telling Johnny to sweep the leg.
Yep.
And he thought about it and he said, no, just let her do what she wants to do. And then, as a matter of fact, I don't know if you guys noticed, but after that, Johnny and Kreese caught eyes and stared at each other for a moment. So it was very cool.
Yeah.
And then of course, Kreese is punished for becoming human by being put in jail.
I know. Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Well, and I think for me, that whole exchange, I was so surprised at Tori winning that fight. And it's funny because, just having a son who's a wrestler all through even college.
Yeah.
And one wrong move can be the difference between winning or losing. But also one bad call, that can be the same thing.
Oh, yeah.
And you know how that feels if there's a bad call. And I felt like Sam could see. I mean, obviously we know what happens. It made sense after the fact. But at the time I kept thinking, wait, there's going to be some redemption here because this is TV. This isn't my son wrestling in the real world. This is TV. And this is going to be resolved. And they're going to fix this. And she's still going to prevail. And I was so surprised she didn't. And they let that happen. And I thought, wow, clearly like the out of bounds. And, she was already out of bounds. And the other one was, they didn't give her the point. And I was very surprised at how it was going. I thought there's no way. In fact, even before the fight took place, I had it all figured out. I said to Devin, well, of course they're going to have the boys match first, because in order for Miyagi-Do to win, they have to win both matches. And so they're not going to show the girls match first, because we already know who's going to win the boys match. So I had it all figured out, and yet it was wrong. So
yeah. But I love that, right? Because you expect something. Go ahead.
Yeah, well, you just start saying this is how it has to end.
Oh, I was just going to say that brings us to the very end where Tori's walking back there and she hears the two guys getting paid off for the ref being paid off. And I thought that was very interesting that they chose Tori as the character to hear that. Because it could have been anybody. They could have made anybody go back to the locker room. But it was her. And I'm just wondering what's she going to do with that information. You know?
It's pivotal. It is truly pivotal. She's the key right now, right? And so, I don't know. We're going to see what happens. I do want to say, though, I really liked Sam's focus. I like her way of doing karate. I loved how she did some moves, and you see Tori look at her like what is she doing? But she was centering herself, and I love those moves when that happens. So I just thought that was so cool that she did that several times, and I'm like, this is why I love Cobra Kai. So after the tournament, and you could see Robby was not super thrilled with them winning. Like everybody was, over the moon happy, and Robby just had this look on his face. And so after everything, that's where we see everything shift and more exciting things to happen. Because I kept thinking, what? They can't do, own dojos and teach students anymore. What's going to happen? And, but the last, whatever it is, 10, 15 minutes left me with my mouth hanging open. And I love when that happens because I was shocked and I was excited with everything. So we see Robby follow Johnny. And you had mentioned this already, how they have that heart-to-heart moment and they hug, and that just tore at my heartstrings because that's what I wanted for so many seasons for this to happen. So I really appreciated that they did that, and just to see Robby, because what happens is he matures, right? He matures and sees sees Kenny that he can't control it, and basically kind of in a mentor parental role. And so then he comes to his own father, which was perfect. And so I just loved that so much. And we already spoke about Tori and her pivotal, being very pivotal the next season. But I wanted to, and then, I was surprised with Silver and Kreese. And that was shocking to me. I had no idea. And then I like how they show it jumped to Stingray in bed and how he names Kreese as the one. And then it jumps back forward. And he tells Silver, what did you do? And then they come and arrest him. And then Silver has that diabolical laugh that he had also in Karate Kid 3, if you guys happen to watch it. But okay, so the two biggest points to me is, one is Miguel and his dad, because he's off to Mexico. Yeah. Johnny comes home to talk to Carmen, and Carmen has him read the letter, and then he says, we'll find him. And she goes, no, but you don't understand. I haven't, the father doesn't know about him. And she says, it's okay. I can handle myself. And I'm thinking, oh my God, what if it's the cartel? We don't know. It just blew.
What's to come? They're bad guys, she said. Yeah,
it blew my mind because I thought they're going to take this to Mexico. He's going to have to fight people in Mexico. Is everybody going to go along and help Johnny, I don't know. But I just thought, wow, this has gotten big now. This has gotten really big.
Yeah. Diana, I think you're going to have to pack your bags and bring us podcasts down south.
Oh my gosh. The biggest point, I'll wait for the end. Let you guys talk first. What did you guys think?
Well, yeah, I think, again, I watched this whole season with Johnny, and I felt like they just continued to not let him grow in the way that we know he's growing inside, and they won't let it happen. So I was getting really frustrated. And so, it's like you said, I wonder what's going to happen. And I really hope that if we get into the next season where this whole dad thing and down in Mexico, that he turns out to be the hero for Miguel. I really hope that happens because, even in the final tournament, he came in third place. They still didn't even let him have his team come in second. And they're the underdogs. And I feel like there's this thing with Johnny that there's these moments where you can see the growth and they won't let it happen. They kind of shut it out. He says the wrong thing at the wrong moment, and then the two people are gone, and you can't get it wrapped up. And I just think that it's hard to watch because it's like you said at the very beginning of this, you are rooting for the underdog. And the true underdog is Johnny and what he represents. Yeah. And, and there's people that start to turn the corner and that are the underdogs as well. And you find yourself feeling bad for them and wanting them to grow and succeed. But I'm really hoping that we'll see more of that with him being a hero. I don't know. It kind of frustrated me.
Don't you think, though, his hug with Robby was probably the highlight for him? That's his son. That's what he wants more than anything. And for his son to come to him and embrace him, and he tells him everything's going to be okay. I think that's a big win. I think that's a cool win for him.
That's true. That's totally true. Like he recognizes that he's figured it out. He recognized it on his own.
Yeah, that was a big moment.
What'd you think, Devin?
They left a lot of strings dangling as far as what can happen down the line. One of the bigger ones is when Kreese gets hauled off. That's going to be interesting to see how he gets out of jail. Is it going to be Johnny that comes and bails him out? Whatever. What's Silver going to do? He's franchising these places. They're going to be all over town. That'll be interesting to see if he can do that or not. I think the Robby, connection with his dad, I think it was huge, Diana. I mean, it was probably one of the most satisfying moments of the whole show because we all know how badly Johnny wants to be a good person. He's just not equipped. So there's a lot of stumbling. So it's like Cindy said, it gets frustrating, but he is, an adult that really had no one bring him up. So he's figuring all this stuff out. And that's always a fun journey to go on. I hope that continues. But my main hope is that Ralph Macchio and him find a way to actually run a good dojo, and with all these all these other dojos in the valley, that they create something special because that's the two of them. So there's probably more strings left dangling than I'm thinking of, but.
I know there's so much to talk about. The show is so good. Okay. So let's talk about the very end, which had me screaming in my seat when the credits rolled, because we see Daniel at Mr. Miyagi's tombstone, gravesite,
Yes.
saying, everything that he tried to do and to do it the right way, and that, but he has to stop Cobra Kai because, they aren't very honorable men. And he says, "Will you help me?" And as he's saying that, of course, we see the camera pan, and we see Chosen. Chosen is there.
Yes.
Oh, and he walks up, and together they stand there and they bow. It was so good. I was like, my mind is blown.
Yes.
And no one had seen it. I saw this all by myself. So you guys had each other when you saw it, I'm sure. But I sat there all by myself, and I was like, making like, oh my God. I had to wait till everybody else had watched it for me to bring it up. I was just ecstatic about it. And then it was so good. And then the second time I watched it, or the third time, whichever time it was, I didn't realize, but it was Switch 625, Def Leppard. And I thought, this is the perfect song.
Yes.
I loved it. It made you just it just pumped you up. And you're like, yes, we're ready for the next season. So I loved that ending. I thought that was the perfect, perfect shot.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So let's talk about any other tidbits or thoughts. We've already talked about the soundtrack, how much we like that, right? I mean, there was Judas Priest, AC/DC, Survivor. And then when Kenny was dancing at the bus stop, that was Gotta Get Into Something by Gary Clark Jr. I didn't know that song. I now love that song. I went and found it. I ran and Googled it and found it on YouTube. You guys should check it out. Gotta Get Into Something, Gary Clark Jr. Very good. And we kind of talked about Kenny's evolution, but I wanted to say Kenny is played by Dallas Dupree Young, and he's only 15, and he's the youngest cast member. So I just thought that was kind of a cool thing. I like that they brought Aisha back, because everybody kept wondering what the heck happened to her. So I'd like to see her come back, but at least they gave her something. I didn't want them to just not revisit the relationship she had with Sam. So I'm glad that they brought her back. And then I saw Ralph Macchio on Jimmy Fallon, and he was talking about Karate Kid cinematic universe, which I thought was the coolest thing, because there might be prequels, movies, this and that. So of course that got me excited for all of that possibility. And also, I wanted to bring up that they received a SAG nomination for Outstanding Action Performance by a Stunt Ensemble for a television series.
That's great.
Which is really cool. Yeah. I think it was for the All Valley and all of that, which I think is so well deserved. Yeah. So what other tidbits or thoughts do you have?
Well, I just think it's so funny that they did. I'm hoping that they dropped us a line into next season by having Tori to be the one who walked in to the locker room.
Yeah.
I think that, because as we already talked about, just who she is, and she's really more about the drive to win. She does not seem to me to be somebody who would want to win by cheating. Not just not by cheating, but that she didn't really get the win. Yeah. I mean, that is not who she is. For somebody to say, well, you're the winner when you really didn't earn the win. Mm-hmm. And she didn't earn the win. And so I think as they've been kind of changing her character, and enter Amanda, kind of giving her that motherly mentorship and wanting to help her, and you're kind of, you see the evil aunt come in. Like, we see a lot more things come in for Tori this season. She goes through the struggle of jobs. I just really, that to me was a really interesting ending to that. And, how would it be if it was somebody else? What if that was somebody else, right? So
Yeah.
The specifics of them choosing her, I think really is setting something up for her character next season. So,
yeah.
And I've not ever cared for her before, but I
Right.
felt like toward the end of the season, I started to really root for her. And not to win.
Mm-hmm.
I certainly wanted Sam to win the match.
Yeah.
But you want her to be a winner in life, I think.
Yeah. Well, when you see anybody putting in effort and you see that they really care and are really good people, then you always want them to succeed.
Mm-hmm.
So I can see that. So what do you guys hope to see in season 5? Which you kind of already said a little bit, but do you want to add anything to that?
Just, what I talked about before. I would like for the ship to start. The ship between Johnny and Daniel. No more, dancing around each other. I want them to find a good way to live together, work together.
Fight against the cartel.
That's right. Fight against the cartel.
Or whoever the enemy is.
Right.
The enemy is.
Teaching each other things that they didn't know, that's what I'm looking for. I've had enough of the will they or won't they.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I just really feel like we've seen the growth in Johnny. I want that to be expressed a little more, and there was the moment at the end with Robby and Johnny, and that was great. But we've seen some of that before. We've seen those moments, and then they go awry again. And so I'm just really hoping. There's so many interesting people. They've really started to build this up with other people being interesting, and their lives are interesting. Even Kreese, that I can't stand the guy, but leaving there to be something about how his character is changing, and now he might be in jail, like letting Johnny have some resolution to his relationships and enjoy the growth and the happiness and really, moving on to other people and dealing with those conflicts and not continuing to bring that conflict back to him. So that's really what I'm hoping for. I like it when I can root for him and he's actually the winner. And you just never see him as the winner.
Yeah.
Out of his own fault, unfortunately.
Yeah. Oh, man. So, yes, of course, I want Johnny and Robby's relationship to keep on flourishing. And I keep thinking, well, maybe Robby will tag along to Mexico or wherever he goes and help his dad and get Miguel back or whatever it is. I mean, who's to say? I mean, we don't know. Maybe Miguel's going to love it in Mexico and just decide to live there. I don't know. We don't know what to expect. I will look forward to Chosen and Silver. Maybe them having a face-off. I think that would be really cool to see.
Yeah.
Mike Barnes is in Karate Kid 3, and we hear Silver say, I have friends basically to Kreese that will help me. So it made me think of Mike Barnes because that's but that's one of the people that hasn't come back yet. And we haven't seen Julie Pierce, who is Hilary Swank, although she's a big actress. I don't know if she'll come back, but, we can still hope. Maybe partial episode. I don't know. It'd be fun to see anybody from the Karate Kid movies come. And I hope Tori will come clean with what she knows since Sam won for Miyagi-Do.
Yeah.
So if you could give a prediction, one prediction, well, I say one, but I tend to cheat, but one prediction in one sentence, what would be your prediction for Cobra Kai season 5?
I predict that Tori's going to give that trophy back.
I predict that Johnny and Robby are going to go down to Mexico to find Miguel. I think that's going to happen.
I predict that Anthony LaRusso will learn Miyagi-Do and have to face off with Kenny.
Oh,
wow. And that the technique on the Miyagi-Do scroll will come into play.
Yes, you are correct.
Yeah, they brought that out, that scroll, and then they didn't do anything.
Yeah, no, that was a good call. As a matter of fact, Cindy, I think you said it the other night that they're going to use that in the next episode.
That would be so cool. I can't wait.
Yeah.
So now that we've wrapped up Cobra Kai season 4 and are looking forward to season 5, we have plenty of time, right? Because it might be another year before we get to watch it. So there is other television and movies out there. So I'm just curious if you guys have any recommendations.
Well, Cindy and I just finished Yellowstone, which was very good, and I would recommend to watch that. I've described it as Sopranos on horses. So it's good. It's got some fun to it. Kind of a dark horse for me would be to recommend War of the Worlds on the Paramount Network. Very well done, although it's very slow. It's got, nice big payoff. And then thirdly, there's a show on Amazon called The Expanse, which is fantastic. It's really good sci-fi, and it's just well done. Very well done. Well thought out.
Thanks, Devin.
Sure.
Yeah. And, to follow up with Yellowstone, we just started watching 1883. And it is fantastic. And actually, one of my favorite things is to watch the historical timepieces. I love to see old things. I like to see how open the land is, and I like to see the covered wagons, and I like to see the way people dressed. And, we enjoy Downton Abbey and Poldark and Hell on Wheels and
Miss Maisel.
And Miss Maisel. So anything that's a timepiece from the past, I love those. And so 1883 is really, really good. And the characters are so likable that it's fun to be rooting for them when you know that they have this long journey ahead of them. So we're waiting for the next episode to be released. So we're chugging along.
Yeah.
I haven't watched that yet, but I'm going to. So I'm looking forward to 1883. And I have seen Yellowstone, which I love. And have you seen Outlander?
Not yet.
No.
If you like history, you need to watch Outlander.
Yes.
So
I've heard that from so many
it's
people.
really good.
It's in our queue.
I'll bump that up on the list.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you guys. I watch a lot of TV and shows, and I keep my, our website blog updated. So if anybody's looking for anything, you can look there. But recently, Ozark season 4 just released on Netflix. And of course, I binged it completely over a few days. It was so good. And Resident Alien season 2 on Sci-Fi just started.
Yes.
And the first season was so funny. And here we go again with this Resident Alien. So
that was a great show. I'm glad that's out. And we love Ozark too. That was a great show. So I'm glad to know that the next season's out. That's good.
Yeah, it is. Okay, well, thank you guys. Thank you both for joining me. It has been so much fun. And I'm so glad you said yes and joined me today.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, you're welcome. That's our show. Thanks for tuning in. We are grateful you tuned in, and we hope something we said today resonated with you, gave you a chuckle, some happiness, some positivity, or inspiration. Please subscribe on Apple Podcast or wherever you listen, and tell a friend. We would love more members of our TV club. Please rate and review the podcast. We need your feedback. This helps other listeners find us. We'll be back with The Walking Dead 11B premieres 2/20. That's February 20th. You can find our website listed in our show notes. See you next time. Bye.